everybody, this is Eve West. Thank you for tuning into my YouTube channel. This channel is dedicated to promoting a book I wrote. It's called Follow. It's an ebook. You can find it on Amazon.com under the Kindles tab. And it's a book about a holistic view of spirituality, looking at it not just from a metaphysical, conceptual, etheric aspect of a human being, such as love and creativity, intuition, and those conceptual aspects of who we are, but also the reptilian brain, which corresponds to the, what we can see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. And so I look at various aspects of us from an earthly perspective, such as race, and money, and sex, and a lot of things that we're actually shunned for exploring, if you will, in terms of spirituality, but they're very much a part of us, as well as the spiritual etheric aspect of who we are as well. And so I look at the various constructs of the matrix and how they are used to divide the mind into the ego and the unconscious astral body. And so I look at, for example, media and entertainment, education, the familial structure, the government structure, religion, and just show how and paint a picture of how we are actually placed in an environment that accrues what you call a split mind. Accrues a split mind. And so it's the intention of the environment to split the mind and really bury you alive pretty much under your unconscious. The video that I'm doing, like I said, I've been dealing with a lot of gang stalking and so forth, but I do want to focus on some topics that I believe really kind of explain a lot of the esoteric knowledge that I explore, if you will, and especially when it comes to sex. Sex is a major part of spirituality, and it has a lot to do with us being human. And many of us, we were taught, especially younger, that sex is something that is used for procreation, right, and pleasure. And I'm not saying that, at the mundane, earthly level, that is not true, but, from on a superficial level, it is true, but from a metaphysical level, when you reach a certain higher taxonomy of knowledge, you realize that sex has nothing to do necessarily with reproducing. Because everything is governed in this reality by programming, or what you would call the Akashic record, or the book of life mentioned in the book of Revelation in the Bible. And so the Akashic record is all the thoughts, actions, and emotions of a being. And so everything that you pretty much will experience in your reality has already been predetermined. So there's really truly no cause and effect. Although as the ego, it looks like cause and effects, from your reptilian brain. That's really how our reality is designed or set up to look like. But, and I'm not saying that sex does not produce pleasure. It does, but, the way that we see sex is a little bit different. And so I just want to give an esoteric viewpoint or perspective of what sex is really. And so, whenever you're in physicality, if you will, you have to be unholy in a way. Eventually, you shed your androgynous nature when you were younger, a child. And so you get pressed out through the reincarnation system, and really around about puberty, you start to cultivate a desire to copulate is really fused within your consciousness. And so you will start to seek, if you're a woman, you will start to seek a man. If you're a man, you will seek a woman. And the reason why this happens is because you are longing for that other aspect of yourself. You're longing for that androgynous aspect of yourself that you more so had when you were a child. Children are androgynous. They do not seek a vagina or a penis to make themselves holy. And so, but it's actually natural. I wouldn't say natural, but it's understandable as you start to get your mind separated by the various constructs of the matrix, that you do decide to go ahead and copulate so you can have some type of artificial, I guess what you would say, means to find union with yourself. And sex is not just the only way to find union. Food is another way, another artificial way to find union with the masculine physical aspect of yourself, to put you back in your body, because the ego is very psychological. And think to yourself within this matrix environment, it's all about thinking. Everything is about thinking. There really is no being here, except for the powers that be. The powers that be, they have, control of their sacral. So they, they don't have to work a 9 to 5, or they don't have to really take care of their families and things like that. And they don't have to do the normal things that we do as egos. So, but if you're ego, then you're constantly thinking about certain things. And so that takes you away from your feeling body. So you're not in a state of being, because you are deprived of the money and the time to ground your desires into physical reality. And so for us who are not able to do that, we don't have control of our sacral solar plexus, our kundalini, whatever you call it, to ground the desires. Then we have to find artificial means. And so the different vices of the matrix, such as I would say food and sex and drugs and all these various things, really help to, I guess as you would say, artificially compensate for what we're missing and what we are lacking. And so that's why this particular realm is called the demiurge or demiurge. And demi, the prefix demi means half. And so you are half of yourself. And so as in seeking the other, you are trying to find wholeness, or you are trying to find union. And so that's really what sexuality is about. That is what sexuality is about. Now, in saying that and looking at, how sexuality has devolved within our, matrix environment, it's devolved because of the fact that our psychological mind. If you think about, animals, if you will, animals are not as sophisticated as human beings are. I don't believe that animals have a neocortex, or they may not have as much neocortex, if you will, as human beings do. And this kind of goes to the matrix. That's why Neo is named Neo, because the neocortex actually separates us from animals. And so the neocortex makes us super duper psychological, or psychos, if you really want to talk about it at this point. And really get down to the bottom of things. But, most animals don't possess the neocortex like human beings do. And so they have sex within balance. If they have or feel a need to copulate, they'll copulate. And then that's that. They go about their time gathering their food and stuff like that. And, doing whatever else that they need to do to survive. But human beings, sex is a major part of our life. And so, we have to have contraceptives, and we have sexually transmitted diseases. And, if we want to have sex, we don't have a relationship, a serious relationship. Many of us, we go out to bars and stuff like that, and we try to pick somebody up, and, in order to get someone's attention, you might come up with a line, or you might take people out to dinner, and do all these different things, really just to copulate, for the most part, and to gain that other aspect of yourself. But animals do not do that, because animals are not psychos. They're not psychological. They don't have that neocortex like human beings do. And so the sexual nature has become very debased because of this environment. This environment cultivates the psyche, or the spiritual. It puts you out of your body into the thinking mind, to the psychological mind. And so that's why a lot of our sexual fetishes are very psychological. We get things, all types of sexual fetishes, one of which I'd like to point out is, golden showers. When I was bridging my conscious ego with my unconscious mind, I judged, although nothing at the atomic level should be judged, but, as an ego, right? I judged, people wanting to pee on people, or people peeing on other people, peeing on other people, or wanting people to pee on them, I should say, because, to me, that's dirty. That's nasty, you know? And so I thought to myself, what would make somebody want to do that? And, I really started to look at things from a more esoteric standpoint. And when I did research, the person that the article I found, the guy talked about how he likes, urine, I guess, because it's novel, it's something different, right? But he doesn't like the smell of urine, and so he would request that his partner drink water, and he would drink water before the sexual act so the urine would not, really smell, and so it would make it a more enjoyable experience. And so looking at this, this is psychological. This is like a whole lot of planning. Animals don't say, you know what, we're going to really think about the sexual act that we're going to have way ahead of time. You know what I mean? They just naturally go ahead and do it. It's just not something that is put into the psychological mind. And so as human beings, we put a lot of thought into sex, and a lot goes into the psychological mind surrounding it, if you will. Gaining a mate and so forth, especially with online dating. And, everything is psychological. It's not organic. It's kind of like shopping nowadays. You go online and you say, okay, I want I'm seeking a man, and I'm seeking a man around this age, and I want him to have these hobbies and this type of bank account, and, all these different things before you even, speak to the person. And so that's psycho, really, to be honest with you. From an esoteric point of view, it's psychological. It's not organic. And so this is really transhumanism, really taking a human being from the balance of the masculine and the feminine and putting them into a psychological state of being. Well, actually, it's not a state of being, but a psychological state where, they're governed by, really just a psychological mind. And so that's not normal, that's not natural. And so that's how sexuality has devolved. And when you get into homosexuality, like sexuality, it's pretty much the same thing. You're trying to seek outside of yourself for completion. But, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality if it's done consciously, just like there's nothing wrong with sexuality if it's done consciously. But most people are not consciously heterosexual or consciously homosexual. And so when you're not consciously heterosexual or homosexual, or just sexual, and making a conscious decision to copulate, and you feel led to do it, then you are unconscious. And I know that sounds weird, because within the demiurge or the matrix or whatever, if you're horny, it's like, okay, that's natural. But that really is not natural, to be honest with you. And I used the example when I met a guy out one night at the bar, and he was talking about, being in Amsterdam, and how they were in a park called Vogel Park, and the women were out there sunbathing with their tops off and stuff, and he and his American friends, they were just kind of blown away. They're like, wow, look at those naked women over there. But the native men who were in the park with the women acted as if the women were not there. And so you ask yourself, why is that? And it's because it's not a restriction on the sexual nature. Whenever you're restricted, within the environment, and your sexuality is restricted, it comes out in very nasty and debased ways. But if you had more sovereignty and, more of a choice of what you wanted to experience and how you wanted to experience it, you were not a slave to your environment, then it wouldn't really accrue judgment. You wouldn't really feel bad about yourself, and your sexuality would be expressed with more balance, like pretty much like animals are, expressed in balance. And so that's why the native men, out there, if they wanted to copulate with one of those women, they would make more of a conscious choice to do so, as opposed to feeling led to actually copulate, if you will, with one of those women, like the American men are. And so sex is always fused within our consciousness, and there's a desire cultivated for sex. However, we are shunned for being whores of Babylon, or we're shunned for just acting upon our sexual nature in an impulsive type of way. Although we can't even watch television without like candy commercials Like I remember with the Easter Bunny Reese's commercial when it was playing the song Let's Get It On, or the Kit Kat commercial that I saw recently with Missy Elliott's Work It, which is talking about working a penis. And so, subliminally, we're programmed to and cultivated to want sex on a regular basis. And one of the reasons for that is to rot out the solar plexus, or what they call the kundalini. You're really supposed to bank your sexual nature. And when you bank your sexual nature, it rises up your spinal column, where it unites your pituitary and your pineal gland, and you reach what we call Christ consciousness. But because in this particular realm, a desire for sex is always cultivated, and we are really short-circuiting our nervous systems in our brain with a lot of dopamine, with orgasms and other vices of the matrix, such as food and all these other things that help to gratify the body and release dopamine into the brain. You don't really get a chance to experience what we call enlightenment, experience being holy, if you will, and not seeking someone else for your happiness, but making a conscious decision, as opposed to being led and trying to, find wholeness some outside of yourself in an external way. And so, anytime you're led to do something, you are not in control. Whatever that you're being led to is in control of you. That's why when people are horny, they, horns is associated with the devil, or horns. And so when you say you're horny, which is associated with the devil just means the veil, or the veil of the ego, or the unconscious mind. The veil, devil is the veil. And so, I don't want to demonize sexuality in any type of way, but what I'm really trying to say is that, when you feel led to copulate, then you are looking for the unconscious aspect of yourself, and you want to find union. You want to find union with the devil, or you want to find union with the unconscious, the veil of your ego. And so this is something that happens, pretty much automatically, because you are in the demiurge, or you're playing half of yourself, since demi means half. And so, homosexuality is definitely demonized a lot of times within, at the atomic physical level. But, regardless if you're heterosexual or homosexual, anything that manifests in the physical starts in the metaphysical. But once you get to homosexuality, you've definitely been reincarnated so much. If you're not making a conscious decision to be homosexual, most people don't. But if you're not making a conscious decision to be homosexual, then your consciousness has devolved into a state where you're not just seeking to be with the other, but you're seeking to be the other. You're seeking to be the other, and that's a problem. That's why the Antichrist will be, is a homosexual. You know what I mean? An unconsciously imbalanced masculine soul, if you will. And so, the whole purpose is to take back your power to where you're not led to copulate with anyone, whether it be man or woman, same sex, or what have you, but to make a conscious decision to do so, have sovereignty, and really be able to meet your own needs instead of having to seek outside of yourself to have somebody else meet your needs. Because whenever that you're in that state of having to, go outside of yourself to have someone meet your needs, then you are a slave. This is what we call a slave mentality. And that is what the constructs in the matrix are designed to do. It's designed to create a slave mentality within you. And so that's why this is a prison system. Although it appears superficially that we are free, we are not free. We are slaves. And so, with our consciousness being bombarded with all these various, things about sex or what have you, and everything else, we really don't own the mind. It's the people that own this construct that actually own the mind. Although at the end of our incarnation, we get blamed for what they owned and the type of mind that they created, so to speak. So, I just want to kind of give some food for thought there, and really looking at sexuality and what it really means from an esoteric standpoint, and just kind of shed light on how we've devolved in our sexuality, and and really shedding light on why we unconsciously do the things that we do. We think that, oh, we copulate because it feels good, and because it's for we copulate to procreate, but really underlyingly, that just kind of scratches the surface of, really doesn't scratch the surface actually of the real reason why we are sexual beings, and why we use sexuality, if you will, to find union with the unconscious devil veil of our ego. So thanks guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video.